Hi friends, Senate Eskridge here. Welcome back to day 5 of my 7-day passive real estate investing course. Today we're going to talk about some terms, we'll get into some definitions and some formulas. So grab a pen and a piece of paper. Let's dive right in because I have a lot of things to talk about with you today. So I want to first start talking about definitions of key terms that are important for you to know when looking at and analyzing one of these properties that you could be investing in. Now, the first term is NOI, or net operating income. This is a key term that we use when we're analyzing a commercial property. It's a really actually simple formula. It's total income minus operating expenses. Now, so operating expenses, that's not going to include things like debt service or major capital improvements. Like, if we're putting on a new roof, that's not going to come out of an operating expense. That's going to come out of what's called a capital expense. So NOI, again, is total income minus operating expenses before debt service and capital expenses. Pretty simple formula, but it's a nuance you've got to understand. And this is going to really roll into a couple of the next two or three things we're going to talk about. So it's important you understand NOI. The next one is what we call cap rate or capitalization rate. Now, this is basically the return that you would get on a property if you would pay all cash for it at today's current value. That's a really good way to understand it. Now, this is really what controls the purchase price of a property or commercial asset. So the way the cap rate formula works is you take the NOI we just discussed and you divide it by a cap rate, which is going to be a percentage, say 5%. So you take NOI divided by a 5% cap rate, and that equals the purchase price. Now, to help with that formula, if you have a property with an NOI of $100,000 and it's at a 5 cap, then dividing 100,000 by 0.05. And if I did the math in my head correctly, 100,000 NOI at a 5 cap rate is a $2 million valuation. Now, the way the cap rates work, the higher the cap rate equals a lower purchase price, and a lower cap rate equals a higher purchase price. I know that's hard to wrap your mind around, but that same $2 million property, let's say at a 4 cap, would actually be $2.5 million. Again, mental math, so don't hold me to that exact number, but it's pretty darn close. Because you take 100,000 divided by 0.04, that should come out to be 250,000. All right, next thing I want to move on and talk about is cash on cash return. This is real simple to understand. You put in dollars and you get dollars out. And so you take the amount that you got out and you divide it by the amount that you put in. So if you put in $100,000 and you got a $6,000 return that year, that's going to be a 6% cash on cash return. And next year, maybe it's a little bit different, right? Maybe it's 8%. So now in year 2, your cash on cash return is 8%. And again, these are just examples, but that's to help you understand, if you get 8,000 on 100,000, you get an 8% cash on cash return. So it's the annual cash flows divided by the amount that you invested equals a cash on cash return. This next one is a little bit more nuanced. It's an IRR, or an internal rate of return. Now, this is a percentage. It's always looked at as a percentage, which predicts all the cash flows based on today's value of money. So it's actually predicting inflation and a lot of other complicated things that go into the formula. I'm not going to teach you the exact formula here today, but basically just say, when you're predicting an investment over 5 years, it's all of the returns that you're predicting based on today's value of money. And when you're looked at a property in the rears, it takes all of the money that you get and it's the timing of the money. So the more money you get back to you earlier on in an investment equals a higher IRR. And again, I realize that's a little bit complicated. The next one is a lot easier to understand. It's AAR, or average annual return. So we talked earlier about cash on cash return and how you're getting a little bit of money every single year, and that grows. You typically grows over time. You know, you start off at, I think I said 6% the first year and 8% the second year. But when we sell one of these properties at the end, typically people get a large check at the end, right? Let's just say, 60% of what they invested comes all at the end. So it's a return of all of your capital plus a 60%. And again, I'm making up the numbers as an example, but AAR, average annual return, what that does is it takes the total amount of money that you've received on your investment over the length of time that you've had the money invested, and then annualizes that equally. So if you receive a total of 2 times your money over 5 years, okay, that would be a 20% average annual return. So you take all of the cash flows you received plus the money you make at the exit, add all that, total all that up, and then divide that by the amount of money that you invested, and then divide that by the length of time of the investment. This comes up your average annual return. Next, I want to talk about equity multiple. So this is how many times we're going to multiply your money, right? So a 2x equity multiple is double your money. So in that example I just gave about AAR, that would be a 2x equity multiple, doubling your money. But the problem with equity multiple is it doesn't talk about time frame. If I double your money in 5 years, that's a lot better than if I double your money in 10 years. And that's why we need to look at these other metrics like AAR and IIR so that we can look at the different things and compare them over time. So imagine if I doubled your money in 2 years. That'd be a lot better than doubling it in 5, right? And so, the average annual return is something to really pay attention to and use equity multiple to help figure out the average annual return. All right, so I hope that was helpful to you. I hope that you understand NOI and cash on cash return and cap rates. If you have any questions on those things, please reach out to me. I'd be happy to explain them to you more. And I hope you'll join us tomorrow when we're going to be talking about due diligence and risk management. Thanks.